7 o'clock, Wednesday, June 13th. Welcome to the school committee meeting. Maybe you guys can help me lead this. I'm going to start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. You guys want to do it? Start.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry, sweet. Oh my God, this is so...
Okay, now they need to.
All right, so I love having the energy in the room. We're not used to having all these little faces. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Okay, so with that, then I'm just going to dive right into For the Love of Learning and welcome Ms. Delicio here with her students. Take it away. Shall I? I'm going to move.
Are they coming down here?
I think so.
Guys, you're in the back. Guys, go in the back. We have to win.
No, I feel silly.
I am. Good evening. My name is Greta Sifkin, and I am a third grader at Stanley Elementary. We are here tonight to present our illustrated book series. Last year in art, we wrote and illustrated a book called Farm Life. We were inspired by the work of Eric Carle. It was published and distributed in Stanley School Library, various classrooms, and even the Swampscott Library, where it's checked out regularly.
Hi, my name is Lila Rogers, and I am also a third grader at Stanley. I'm going to read a few excerpts from our book. Everyone thinks they know what goes on at the farm. The sun rises, the rooster crows, and a dog named Bingo barks. There's a moo-moo here and a cluck-cluck there. You've heard the stories, but here's what really happens. Did you know pigs love parties? Patriotic pizza ping pong parties are best. Hold the pepperoni, piggy, piggy, please. Shh, please do not disturb. The cows are watching a movie. Black and white is a must. Casablanca. Tweeting. That's how a chick spends its morning, of course.
Hi, I'm Oliver Graham, and I am a third grader from Stanley. I'm going to read you some pages from Farm Life. Horseway, horsing round, nay, who ever heard of such hooey? Homework, history, hypothesizing, horses are often accepted into Harvard. There's always a line around the block from the barber shop. Who let the dogs out? The cats. They're actually BFFs. Wolf me out forever. So now you know what really happens on the farm. And if you think that's wild, wait till you hear what goes on at the zoo.
Don't forget that you can check out Farm Life at the Swampscott Public Library. Now here's what the second graders are up to.
Hi. My
My name is Emerson Joy, and I am a second grader at Stanley Elementary School. In our class, we are currently working on the sequel to Farm Life. It's called Zoo Life. Zoo Life tells the wild story of what really goes on at the zoo, including some interesting stories of pandas, monkeys, cheetahs, lions, and yaks. Tonight, you are getting a first-time ever sneak peek into its creation.
Hi, I'm Cole Manning. I'm a second grader at Stanley Elementary. To create this story, each of us offered story ideas and animals we wanted to include in our zoo book. We each are responsible for creating an individual animal art for the illustrations. The background cover art was also created by classmates. You can see that it is still a work in progress. Mr. Lestio will add the written story on these blank pages using a website called Blurb. These pages are going to be about pandas being pursued by the paparazzi.
Hi, my name is Ainsley Miller. I'm a second grader at Stanley. Our book will be published over the summer and will be available this fall at Stanley School and again at Swampscott Public Library. If you want, when you can hear, you can hear Miss book read again by visit from Miss Delicio's teacher page at Stanley School website and click on Farm Life. A Zoo Life link will be added over the summer. Stay tuned, second graders. I heard that Sea Life is going to be swimming your way soon.
Can school committee ask some questions if they have them? Sure. I open it up to school committee questions.
With Zoo Life, how many animals are there in the Zoo Life? We don't know. Five.
Who's five? No. I don't know. John Emerson's.
Yeah, it's five. So there's pandas, monkeys, cheetahs, lions, and yaks. Yeah, five.
How long did it take you to work on this project?
About like the end of the year. So yeah, we started around like January. October. Yeah.
So,
And then we ended around later.
So did someone create the idea, like the pandas and the paparazzi, and then you did the artwork?
So they went around and Mrs. Delicia asked for ideas, and then they like asked, and then we told the ideas, and then everyone like voted on them.
And then who decided to did you decide what the picture was gonna look like too?
Yes.
We all made them.
Illustration, and then she glued it onto the picture.
Yeah, the second
Yeah,
grader.
she glued it onto that page and like all the.
Yes.
I have a comment. I think you guys were really great presenters, and my favorite, other than your expression and how well you spoke, I really like to see how the third graders help the second graders. That was pretty awesome.
can I get a picture of Mrs. Delicia? Great job.
Squeeze in a little bit. Squeeze in.
Everybody on the count of three say, Mrs. Delicio.
Delicia.
3. 1, 2.
Nice job, Greta. Absolutely.
Awesome, great job.
It was so exciting when I first met that little girl. She was like, my Greta. Oh, I've never met anyone with my same name. And then she was so excited, like. It's cute. Brought that back. Yes, like so much better than like. Me too.
Exactly, 100%. I said, I'm so glad you brought that back.
Like, that's so much better than everything else we do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, all the
Mic
energy
drop,
takes a
let's go.
nosedive.
Yeah, I can do that all day.
All right, let's just continue. All right, so I just.
Bang the gavel.
Yeah, no, they're little. All right, so we're gonna keep moving on, despite the fact that our energy will all take a nosedive now that all those little ones are gone. So we'll move into community announcements. Ms. Marshall, do you want to start?
All I wanted to say was that we went to the high school graduation, and I don't know what to say other than I just thought this graduating class was inspiring and gracious towards their teachers who were retiring, and they were just so well spoken and
To each other as well.
exactly. I just thought it warranted being mentioned. That's all I had.
Okay. Ms. Wright?
I was lucky enough, as we all were, to be invited to that dinner for hunger,
Feeding America.
Feeding America for food insecurity awareness. And it was just, it's so nice to have kids that are grown up and get invited to things like that and like actually go. It was really like Mr. Lewis was just running around like a crazy person, and he did such a great job, and he said there were so many, like 100 more people than they expected, and the kids were still just like plugging away and serving everyone. It was just really,
Yeah.
it was really a great night. And then we topped it off here at the art gallery and visual arts night, which was always impressive. The kids do a great job. It's really fun.
I want to send some kudos out to Mr. Rovey, our music teacher. I attended an all-town, it wasn't a chorus, but an all-town band concert, and it was amazing. It was the first time I'd seen, I mean, granted, my kids are on the younger side, but it was the first time I'd seen the progression. So he had the fifth graders there who were remarkably better than they were in December. It didn't make my ears bleed. So I give him kudos for that, but even better was to see sort of the next group of kids play, and then after that was the high school kids, and I think it was particularly inspiring for the younger kids to see the older kids and to know that with a lot more practice, that's where they're going. And I really, I give them a lot of credit for masterminding that and having them all make it through, because it was a really great event. And I see some of my favorite people sitting here in front of me. I know that the 8th graders just came back from Washington, D.C., and that was a huge success. I don't think there were any glitches, and I have heard nothing but wonderful things. So I want to say thank you to your whole team, because preparing them to go down there and then for the work that they did down there, I think was pretty amazing. So I really send kudos out to the 8th grade educators.
Including Camp Andrake. I'm
Yes,
sure that
Camp
was
Andrake.
fantastic as usual as well.
So thank you. And I know that there are so many things that are happening at this time of year that we have not touched on. And, I think importantly, it's not that we're not, that one is less or better or more than the others, but that these are just ones that are impacting us pretty directly. So thank you all. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Superintendent Angelakis.
And I'm going to start by speaking to the committee, with your permission.
Absolutely.
One of the things, we haven't had a meeting in public for quite some time, it feels like. However, there have been workshops occurring and then some small group meetings occurring. And a lot of it has centered around my upcoming evaluation.
And some of the constructive criticism and feedback I've gotten from the committee is regarding communications as an area to strengthen. And so as difficult as the conversations were, I spent some time in the last couple weeks reflecting on what kind of communication I give to the committee. And I just would like to remind the committee that there is a difference between things that you want to know and things that you need to know. And so I ask you to keep that in mind when people from the committee keep hounding me for more communication, more communication, more communication. I'm not sure if I should give you my daily itinerary of what I do from the hour I walk in to the hour I leave. But I just want to feel the need to remind the committee about that. The other piece to this is that I did do some soul searching, I did do some reflection, and I did do some research. And typically, on the agenda under superintendent's report, I list a whole lot of things, and then I give you a verbal presentation. One of the ways I've reflected and changed beginning tonight is that from this meeting forward, I will provide a written report to the school committee, which will be then posted on my blog tomorrow morning, which will also be posted on the superintendent's website. So instead of 3 different writings, I am going to do 1 writing, and that will be everywhere. I hope the committee finds that sufficient. One of the things we agreed to moving forward is that I will then link my evidence of my goals and the standards and elements to these reports so that the evaluation process moves smoother without question moving forward. So tonight I present to you a 7-page superintendent's report. And I hope that's sufficient communication for all of you. That's what I expected.
What'd you say?
We'll see. In all fairness,
Looks great.
in all fairness, it does include some wonderful information about our retirees that are here tonight. So I expect it to go down a few pages in 2 weeks. But that is the communication I'll be providing every 2 weeks. So I'm proud of what I'm presenting tonight. I'm proud of the information I'm presenting. I've had colleagues say you're telling them too much, but I know the needs of my community and the needs of my committee, and I'll be happy to provide that. But I would like to begin tonight by one of my favorite things, and that is honoring either students or colleagues. And tonight, one of the best parts of the evening is to honor colleagues that have had an impact on my career here. You know, I was thinking as I was compiling these biographies about who we're going to honor tonight, that slowly in the last few years, with the staff I've recognized, it's chipped away a little piece of my heart because some of these people I've known forever and worked with forever and learned from. And so once again tonight, I honor people that have had an impact on my educational leadership and my style within the district. So the first person I'd like to celebrate is Janet Frasca. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about Janet. Janet's been teaching in the Swampscott Public Schools for 34 years. She started her career here in 1984, working in a variety of capacities, including elementary school librarian, classroom teacher, and more currently as a library media specialist. Janet fosters a love of reading in her students through rich literacy experiences, lessons, and opportunities. She has also brought her expertise and passion for technology into every classroom through highly engaging lessons and activities. Ms. Frasca has been the Geography B coordinator at the Clark School for many years and was able to instill a sense of curiosity and exploration when learning about our world's cultures and earth sciences. She clearly values each of her students' diverse cultures, backgrounds, behaviors, and learning styles, and provides the guidance and support he or she may need in order to be successful as learners. She has been a dedicated teacher and a valued member of our learning community who will be sorely missed. Come on down, Janet. We have a little... I have a little something for each of you. I'm going to ask that you remain down here so we can get a picture of you. Another tweet. Congratulations and hugs.
Pictures. She's going to hold them for you. Awesome. Will you take pictures?
We take pictures.
The next educator is Rosalie Hobbs. As an educator and as a person, Rosalie exudes a passion that is both rare and contagious to everyone she crosses paths with. She has modeled the type of professional who has managed to care deeply, reflect consistently, and deliver the highest level of service to her students and their families throughout her entire illustrious career as a teacher. Her experiences in the field include teaching math in Peabody, followed by a hiatus in order to raise her 2 children, starting out her stint at SMS as a classroom aide, and eventually serving in her current role as an 8th grade math teacher at the middle school. Beyond classroom teaching positions, Rosalie has served as a curriculum director. She was pivotal in establishing the National Junior Honor Society at SMS. She taught summer school to struggling learners. She mentored new teachers, and she held MCAS prep sessions for high school students in order to help them graduate. Of course, all of those above just barely scratch the surface of the countless and sometimes thankless duties that Rosalie performed over decades in order to enrich the lives of her students in ways that extend far beyond academics. It cannot go unsaid that Rosalie has developed extremely strong bonds with her colleagues, bonds that will last well after her time at Swampscott Middle School is complete. She will leave behind her an example to be followed by all of those educators who were fortunate enough to learn from her approach, not only to teaching, but also to life. Rosalie is incredibly intelligent, a master of her curriculum, and an advocate for the best interests of all her students. She connects with her students who struggle the most, as well as her top-performing algebra students. She has given her best effort each day that she has been at SMS, and I hope she tackles retirement with that same amount of passion. Rosalie has been with us for 19 years, but simply put, you will be missed. Come on down. It's been a fun meeting so far. Joanne, we're giving you false impressions. Miss you.
She took both of my children. I know. As did somebody else who's going to be coming down.
The next gentleman didn't know we were doing this tonight. Mr. Evan Katz joined the Swampscott Public Schools family on March 23rd, 2015. He came to us with 27 years of experience in the public sector as both a school business official and a senior financial manager. Prior to joining our team, Mr. Katz served as the Shirley School District Business Manager for 4 years, where he provided CFO leadership in a fiscally challenging transitional period leading to the regionalization with AIR. He went on to serve on the central office leadership team as finance director in the AIR Shirley Regional School District. As the school business administrator for the Swampscott Public Schools, Mr. Katz has worked tirelessly to establish procedures that have made us a more professional and efficient organization, creating systems that will endure long after we have all retired. In his leisure time, Mr. Katz is an avid baseball player. I was honored to be witness of the phone call he got that came offering him an opportunity to pitch for a professional baseball team. We are grateful that Mr. Katz will be remaining on with us during the 2018-2019 school year in the part-time capacity, and look forward to many more episodes of his YouTube series, Baseball by the Sea. Come on down.
Big shout out. We need to publish the YouTube channel. That's pretty funny.
The next gentleman that we are honoring is Mr. Bernie Kravitz, who has been with us for 22 years. Our own 1977 graduate of Swampscott High School, Bernie Kravitz began his long, productive, and inspiring career in teaching science at Beverly High School, where he had not only taught science, but also served as the science department chair for 4 years. After 13 years, Bernie joined his beloved alma mater in the fall of 1997, where for the next 22 years, Bernie has continued to inspire his colleagues, the students, and the community with his dedication and passion to both teaching and learning. Department chair for 13 years, Bernie led the move toward inquiry-based learning in order to foster students' critical thinking about scientific ideas. Outside of the classroom, Bernie has supported student leadership and growth, as a coach of the science team for many years, and as a class advisor for the classes of 2000, 2003, 2008, and 2013. Whether he was leading a student trip on a ski mountain, canoeing along the Ipswich River where students had gone for an unintended swim or veered off the beaten path, organizing the senior show, arranging a prom, or designing a slideshow of memories for his class, Bernie has always been an exemplary educator. In addition to his many activities in and out of the classroom, Bernie has shared his love of photography with the Swampscott community, most recently the Sculpt and Scramble. Bernie has captured beautiful images of our students participating in sports and activities throughout his years at SHS, and Bernie has been gracious with his time and talent by gifting many of these artistic images to his colleagues and students. Bernie has left an indelible mark on Swampscott High School, both students and faculty, that will not be erased. You will be greatly missed. Come on down. Doesn't seem real. I don't think I'll be coming to the high school and not seeing your face. Congratulations. Next, we have Mrs. Catherine Pacito. Mrs. Kathy Pacito has taught in the Swampscott Public Schools for the last 36 years. In 2003, she was nominated by her peers and was the recipient of the Swampscott Education Association Educator of the Year Award. Kathy was also a recipient of the American Red Cross Community Award in 2017 for performing the Heimlich maneuver on 2 students and 1 adult on 3 separate occasions at Stanley School.
Oh my God.
During her tenure, Mrs. Pacito has volunteered in numerous capacities and on many committees, including but not limited to the Stanley School Council, Stanley Safe Routes to School Committee, the Town of Swampscott's No Place for Hate Committee, and the Town of Swampscott Wellness Committee. She is a member of the Delta Kappa Gamma International Honor Society and the Salem State University Graduate School Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society. We are sure Kathy will find lots of ways to continue her wellness and volunteer efforts in her retirement, and wish you nothing but the best.
How did I know? Time flies. It's crazy.
And last, but certainly not least, someone who was recognized at graduation as best dressed and dapper, I think were a couple of words. Mr. Lenny Polacco has been with us for 12 years. No matter how much has changed in Swampscott High School, Lenny Polacco has always been there to greet you with a warm and welcoming smile. While Lenny says his true passion is tennis, his real passion is always making students feel wanted and loved in this building. Lenny has been an institution at Swampscott High School for over 12 years, and the students and faculty cannot imagine what it's going to be like to walk into this building and not see his smiling face there to greet them. Not only has Lenny served here at Swampscott, but he's also served our community and our country as a member of the United States Postal Service and in the military. I can't imagine Swampscott High School without you. Come on down. Where's the pink tie tonight?
That's got his retirement outfit.
So can we get a group photo?
I'm Ted.
Susan?
Yes,
Ted Dillon.
It's like we're photographer where you have to move in this way, otherwise it's going to get that microphone. Okay, it's not ready.
Do any of you have a burning desire to say a few words? Congratulations. Congratulations. Yes.
You, I'll see you in the neighborhood. Oh my God. It's one of this year, and Ellie says congratulations. And enjoy, she said it's somewhere just in the content.
Oh, absolutely. I have like to be
Oh, thank you, Kathy.
National Geographic.
Well, maybe that.
Finally, I'd like to also recognize,
For 1 second. I just want to say, I'm grateful that Mr. Polacco and Mr. Kravitz are here. Otherwise, I would think that the O'Connors had something to do with this, because this is very close to home, and we've, so many of you have been so amazing to the O'Connor family and my 2 kids, so thank you. Thank you.
someone who was unable to attend tonight was an ESP, Lisa Hayes. I'd like to recognize her for her 13 years as an ESP in our integrated preschool. Congratulations to all of you. I think I'm like refusing to believe you won't be here next year when I walk in the building. Enjoy and do something fun. Do that bucket list. All right, moving on to the rest of my superintendent's report. The next item under the report is something I share with the committee annually. That is the Swampscott Education Foundation Grant Awards for the 2017-2018 school year. I'm not going to read through them. They will be posted. But the Swampscott Education Foundation has supported the school district with $17,983 worth of grants this year. Most recently, early this week, we were notified that 2 of our high school teachers in the Fine Arts Department received a $10,000 impact grant, which really shot the dollar amount up. So I want to go on to say that really, Swampscott Education Foundation supports the work that we do in a way that enriches our students' lives.
Do you want to say something about the event?
I should have had the details. Do you want to say it?
To that end, the Swampscott Education Foundation is having its annual soiree. It is this year at Red Rock, not Red Rocks, Mission on the Bay. It is on Saturday, June 30th. I believe it is the date. The musician Jeffrey Gaines is playing. Tickets are still available. You can get them on the Swampscott Education Foundation.org website. And we hope you'll join us there because the foundation does great things for us.
And the money really does come back to the students. And I'm really, really grateful to the teachers and the staff members who have applied. And I feel a strong partnership with SEF Grants Committee. When they question whether this is an operating budget item or a grants budget item, we work on it together. And I really do appreciate the partnership. The next update I have for you is School Business Administrator. As you may or may not notice, Mrs. Vandenberg is in the audience. And so Mrs. Vandenberg and Mr. Katz continue to work tirelessly on the transition to the shared School Business Administrator position for July 1st. I have also signed a contract with the New England School Development Council, who's going to act as our search firm for a full-time school business administrator. This could take up to a year. One of the things that we've talked about is that there are a lot of school districts currently looking for school business administrators, so I don't expect that even though we've hired a search firm, that this will be a quick process. One of the advantages of hiring a search firm, in addition to, say, School Spring website, they have a much broader reach. And as part of the contract, only one of the things that I'll highlight for you is that their reach is more targeted and specific, and so that they reach to New England states, to New York and New Jersey, that with characteristics of towns that are similar to Swampscott. So they do a lot of personal outreach. If people aren't applying, or people are in sitting positions, but they know they might be looking, there's a lot of personal contact. Mr. Katz and I have a conference call with them tomorrow morning, and it really is a targeted search to meet the needs of our district. So we have signed a contract with them. The Joint Director of Human Resources, all I will say is that Mr. Fitzgerald and I are in contract negotiations right now with our top candidate. We actually have a conference call with this candidate again tomorrow. I am hopeful that possibly by the week's end, that position will be tied up and we'll have a signed contract. Another heads up for school committee is that we are going to be having central office moves this summer. During the week of July 9th through the 13th, we are going to be switching the current business office with the current superintendent's office. The current superintendent's office will be going back to where it was originally supposed to be, which is at the front of the building. But I do want to explain to the school committee that the move was precipitated by a couple of things. One is that Mr. Katz is retiring, and that is, his office is currently the superintendent's office of old. Another is that Mrs. Kondyke and her administrative assistant are separated in offices. And one is that Mrs. Kondyke, in a director of curriculum and instruction position, you work with a lot of vendors and educational materials, and a lot of samples are sent your way, and she has a postage stamp office right now with no room to house the educational materials, and they're currently housed in my conference room, and my OCD is kicking in. So we are getting Mrs. Kondyke's storage, and she will be moving into my current office. The next item I'm really, really excited about, and that is an update on safety and security within the Swampscott Public Schools. We have made, in the last year, great strides. In the last several years, we have lobby guard, a visitor pass program and system in the middle school and high school. We have implemented a verbal protocol at the elementary schools where the administrative assistants ask for the name and the purpose and the reason of people's visits. They have been instructed to go so far to ask for IDs in terms of delivery services. So that protocol has been put in place and is followed. We have locked all the doors at the elementary schools where previously doors were left unlocked for teachers to come in. Now the teachers have to go through the extended day or early morning program to get in. But one area that has bothered me tremendously, and not just me, I know anybody that's aware of it, and the community, is that we do a great job up until about 3 o'clock in our middle school and high school. And then these are community buildings and they're wide open. And so one of my fears has always been that, what good is it to have safety and security till 3 o'clock, and then we have these buildings open where people could go hide in a classroom, they could go all over the building, and we really don't have anything in place. So Mrs. Vanderberg, Mr. Katz, and I sat down, and I talked to Mr. Baker as well. And for short money, we can solve the problem, this problem that bothers the community. We are posting for a middle school security person from 2 to 5. So we will have somebody from 7 to 3 and 2 to 5, so they're overlapping for an hour because there's chaos between 2 and 3. And we are also posting for a security person at the high school from 2 to 10. That means that all of the doors at the high school will be locked for sports events. For the athletic teams, they're going to have to use the front door. And that is the only way I can sleep at night knowing that the building is actually secure. So I think we did the budget impact, and I believe it's insignificant for the benefits of what we get.
I think that's a great idea.
The next item is the Swampscott High School Dean of Students update. We have hired Miss Colleen Cull. She comes to us with 9 years of teaching experience as both a general education and a special education teacher. She has 8 years of experience as a dean of students, the last 4 years at Everett High School. I was fortunate enough to sit in on her final interview with the committee. She's passionate, she's enthusiastic, she wants to continue to develop and expand her skill set in curriculum and instruction. And with our NEASC visit coming up, I think more hands on deck, the better. She has a BA from Bridgewater State University, where she majored in history and minored in education, and she has an MED in behavioral education from Simmons College. To speak to her enthusiasm and desire to be part of our team, she came in today and shadowed the high school, and she sat in on our leadership team meeting for 2 hours, and she fit right into the team, I have to say. I think Mrs. Kondyke and Mrs. Vanderberg and Mr. Katz can say that. So we are super excited to have her on board, and I think she brings more than just a disciplinarian to the table, and she's looking to not just stay in that lane of disciplinarian. She really wants to be part of the team, the culture, and the growth of Swampscott High School.
Can I ask you a question? So at the high school, we'll have her and Mr. Kohat, he'll be like the
He's assistant principal.
So he's assistant principal. So, and then And then Mr. Murphy will be here still like the same?
Mr. Murphy's going to be doing
Couple
his
hours,
three
six.
days a week.
So is that 6 hours?
Mr. Larry Murphy.
Mr.
So
Larry
just
Murphy will
to
be
clear.
part-time interim.
And then how about Ms. Mackey? Does she
Ms. Mackey
still-
goes full-time district technology.
So not even for teacher evaluation kind of
Nope.
stuff?
Well, one of the questions during the interview, Ms. Call has experience with Teach Point and the teacher evaluations, so they'll still have what they need. And finally, we had our Massachusetts School Building Authority kickoff call. We were incredibly excited at town meeting that the article for $750,000 for the feasibility study was voted unanimously. On June 1st, we entered the eligibility period, and on Tuesday, June 5th, Mrs. Wright, Mr. Katz and I had our kickoff call with Brian Lynch, who is our liaison at the MSBA, and it was basically to review the deliverables and the timeline. And so one of the initial responsibilities by July 31st is to have assembled our school building committee. And so on your final page of your superintendent's report, you'll note the press release or the statement that went out regarding seeking 3 to 5 qualified residents. It is on the main webpage. I have reached out to the Swampscott Reporter, the Item, and to the Salem News and asked that it run in there. I've already received a couple via email. These resumes and letters of interest are supposed to come to my office, and then we will be setting up an interview committee to interview qualified candidates. So I would encourage anyone at home that's looking to be part of the school building committee, you have till July 6th, no later than July 6th, to submit a letter of interest and to submit a resume, because we are looking for very specific skill sets for candidates that would like to be part of this committee. And that completes my report. Shall I restate my beginning for Mrs. Cooper?
Yes, I think you should.
I won't do it as
Well,
passionately.
we were,
A little
we've been
scolded.
schooled.
No, I just wanted to say, Gargi, that, and you know this to be true, that even though we haven't had a public meeting, there have been a lot of conversations, there's been a workshop, there has been a lot of talk about my goals, the evaluation, where my area to strengthen in is, and the common theme throughout has been communication. And as hard as it is to hear criticism, I think I've told you all before that I'm one that knows my areas to strengthen, and it's hard to swallow, but I did a lot of reflecting through all those meetings, and we talked about tying the standards and elements of my evaluations into the school committee agendas and into things that we do here so that we're not scrambling at the end. So one of the ways that I reflected and did some research is that looking at the agenda, I always do a superintendent's report verbally, but there's so much that goes on that you don't have it in front of you. So moving forward, and tonight being the first example, from now on, I'm going to provide you with a written superintendent's report, and this is going to accomplish a few things. It will give you something to reference, and the goal next year will be that I will tie my standards and elements to these reports. But in addition to that, this is going on the blog tomorrow morning, and this is going on the superintendent's webpage tomorrow morning. So no longer will there be separate written items for those communications. It's all going to be one, and it's all going to be available online in different variant formats. That means twice a month, you will consistently get a written report with all of these things that are important. So I feel really good about this, and as I said, it's sometimes hard to swallow when you hear critical feedback, but I think moving forward, it's going to make for a better superintendent's report.
May I suggest that also go to the building leadership so that they can in turn share either on its own or pieces of it as it makes sense for their audience?
I actually shared with them at our leadership team meeting this morning what I was doing, and they're all leaders. They can go to the website and get it and share it as they deem necessary. I'm not going to handhold on this one. It was made very clear where it will be available for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's great because you're doing this anyway, and you're writing notes for yourself, and
Right.
to just publish it
It accomplishes
checks off a
things.
gigantic box. I appreciate that you're doing that too.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent about any of the report?
Do we have ideas of replacement for our retiring faculty?
There is a process. We have a position tracking form we follow, and the principals go through the hiring processes, and they're doing all those. They've been given, one of the things we discussed today is, you know how we always talk about turnover savings in the budget? They were reminded today of what their budgets are with rehiring, and we had a couple of situations where principals came $20,000 over the target, and we told them to go back to the drawing board. There has to be somebody else out there for, I know where we need to spend our money, and it's in high school positions, and so they've been directed to go back and do that.
So even a position like Janet Frasca, where I can't remember, I thought she was still in 3 schools, correct? Like as the
She's in 2 schools, because we have Mia Morgan as well.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
So
sorry, yeah.
those positions, the principals are all aware of the hiring process. They have hiring packets, they have hiring timelines, hiring checklists. They send them up as recommendations. This is kind of traditional process annually.
All right. You need another minute? So unless there are other questions, we're going to move forward into the school business administrator's update.
Thank you. And if it's okay, just for a second, just to speak about the transition, because I know it's an important topic for the school committee, and I really appreciated the recognition tonight on my retirement. And as I was reflecting on it and about thinking about all the things that we've accomplished in terms of stability, the budget, and putting procedures in place, you know, I'm sitting here at the table and I'm at the leadership team meetings, but it's really so much more than that. And we've got the business office staff, we have the administrative assistants and different people in different roles in the central office, and you know, the financial operations reaches into the buildings. The principals have to be aware of what's going on, their administrative assistants, and we've made a lot of changes in the payroll system, and we have asked staff to do things in terms of payroll and submitting time and how they submit their time. We've really made a lot of changes, and it's really been organization-wide in the time that I've been here. And so, although I won't be there full-time and I'll be helping out Mrs. Vanderberg, I think so much of what we've done, what we've accomplished, the people that have done a lot of the work and have made suggestions and helped me identify things that needed looking at, they're all still going to be there. And as you pointed out in your comments, the systems that we've put in place are going to remain in place, and we're going to continue to build on those. So I feel really confident that even though I won't be there and Mrs. Vanderberg is going to be there full-time, that we really are in a good position to maintain what we have and also to continue to build. And those are the kinds of people that we have in place. So I'm feeling confident that as we move forward and until the search is concluded and there's a permanent person in the position, that we are in really good shape going forward.
Could I add to that a little bit, too? You and I have talked about this in our weekly meetings, and that is that the education Mr. Katz has provided me in terms of finance and budgeting, and though we had a rocky start between conservatism and me being a risk taker, we found our happy medium, and you really have simplified some very complicated budget situations for me. You have a way and a gift of setting up very simplified spreadsheets that articulate just what I need, and I know that you've shared those with Mrs. Vanderberg, and that alone has taught me so much that I am in a different position in terms of budgeting than I was when you first joined us. And I think about the day we had your final interview and you said, here's what I can provide you: analysis of gas and electrical usage, and I was sold. You just have a way of simplifying with very colorful charts for someone who's visually dependent. You make it understandable. It's almost budgeting 101 that you gave me, and I'm very grateful for your tutelage. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so on to the matters at hand. We've got 3 items. One is a minor adjustment. I put together a recap. I think a year ago we increased the high school user fee for athletics from $250 to $325, and we realized probably in the fall, the athletic director mentioned that in previous years, the family cap was an even multiple of the fee. It used to be 5 times the fee, $12.50, $250 times 5. And when we raised the fee, we didn't change the family cap, and it resulted in some confusion. People overpaid. We had to issue refunds. Sometimes the athletic office had to do calculations to tell people to pay odd amounts through the online system. And so what we want to do is correct that for this year coming up. And what we're recommending here is, right now the family cap is $1,250. If we take the current $325 fee, multiply it times 4, we come up with $1,300 and have an even number. So the memo before you tonight recommends implementing a family cap for athletic fees at $1,300 instead of the current $1,250, and it will have a nominal impact on the overall finances.
Any questions?
I don't think we need a vote.
No.
If we need to vote, we can implement it.
Okay. That's separate from any further analysis of a raising of user fees. That's another discussion.
Right, like, like, why aren't we doing 5 times like it was before?
Right.
For that, so.
Okay, and the next thing is a memo on a transfer. We do this whole series of transfers in October when we're rebalancing the budget based on hiring and changes since the spring. And in the last few weeks, we were advised by Mrs. Condike that due to cost savings involving the math pilot curriculum, she thought there was going to be a charge for some materials, and it turns out there was no charge, and there's a savings in her budget, and she's requesting that I bring forward a transfer of $15,000 from her curriculum materials budget to technology equipment so we can continue to move the district forward with materials, but in the area of technology instead of curriculum materials for this year only. So it's be a one-time transfer for this year.
I'm assuming that makes sense for you.
It makes sense for me because we've had so many discussions about this, but I would let Mrs. Condike explain in further detail. And one of the things that, I'll let Mrs. Condike.
So oftentimes when there is going to be a new program piloted, we get quite a bit of materials to use from a publishing company, but there's usually still a cost involved with piloting some of the materials, some of the print materials. With the vendor that we're working with, Houghton Mifflin, we will be piloting a program. They will let us use all of the print materials free this year. So as a result, I know that in the technology budget, there were some things that they still really needed that they were not going to have funding for. And I had saved this money thinking it would be used, so now it's being, I'm requesting that it be transferred into the tech budget for some additional pieces for the classrooms that would not have. Okay.
I think I want to give a little background to this. Mr. Katz said this at the leadership team meeting this morning pretty eloquently. Up until this year, we have not had a good hold on the technology budget, and one of the things that Suzanne has pointed out is that, you know, you're buying, do you know where you're headed? Well, having Mrs. Mackey Knowles in the position of a .8 district technology person, she has spent, the last 6 months analyzing the budget, analyzing repairs, analyzing software, analyzing licenses, analyzing all kinds of expenses that we needed. And we finally have a really good sense of where our money is going. What we didn't expect, which we are incredibly grateful for, is that the town CIC committee supported all of our technology requests, which is really allowing us to get technology into the hands of kids. There are iPad carts going in. We are getting consistent iPad apps, Mrs. Porter. They're doing a survey currently. We're cleaning out the iPads. So I think I sensed a little huff over here about maybe more money throwing at technology and not knowing where we're going. But I'm telling you, we know where we're going.
Okay, so this bothers me, but not just for those reasons. Like, I would love I think it's great the town gave us all the money we asked for, right? So I think we need to just like see what we have. And I know that's like a continual process, and I know that the tech department is looking at that, and they're buying things, and they're, shifting things around and whatever. But, so we got the CIC money, so we're buying lots of stuff. I see, the SEF money, so there's some tech laptops going to art. I see in this grant that we're going to look at later that there's 20 iPads going to Clark. I just see like a lot of tech floating around and coming, and I think it's great, but I would love to have before we vote this or whatever, I would love to see like sort of where we're at and what we wanted and how far we've come. But my bigger problem is I really want this money for something else, because I know I had a meeting with you when we talk about the school and visioning, and hiring a professional consultant to come in to help us really do an educational visioning workshop with staff and teachers and parents, and really defining who we are as a district and where we want to go. And that's not going to be a cheap thing, and we're not even sure if we can use feasibility study money for that. And it's like this type of money like that becomes available seems really important to me for immediately for that.
Well, I would say two things, though.
That's my.
Okay, so I would say a few things to this.
Can I just jump in before?
Okay,
Because
I just
it
don't
might
wanna
answer
forget.
you.
Okay.
Because you might answer me as well. I think from my concern is that it feels like it's answering or fixing a problem that I'm not sure I understood that we had.
We didn't have a problem. We do have a problem. All right, so let me give you several answers to this. Number one, I look forward to, I think this is not the right time of year, bringing Ms. Mackie Knowles into the school committee and having her present all the charts and graphs with her tech people, integration specialist, and talk about how they know where every device is, what it's being used for, how it's being used, how often it's being used. We have all that information, which we never had before. And I look forward to bringing her in to do a presentation to the school committee. Secondly, I have reached out to the Northbridge superintendent to talk about Frank Locker that you and I discussed, and I am pursuing that. The problem with looking at this money and saving it for that is that this is FY18. And by the time we get Frank Locker in, it's going to be FY19. And I don't have a problem going to Mrs. Condike and saying, for curriculum or whatever budget she has, oh, yoo-hoo, I'm taking some money for Frank Locker. And we're currently talking about...
Are we already doing PD?
We're talking about the convocation, yes, we are. I seem to be going into that bucket of money. But I'm just saying, this is FY18. If we don't spend this, we lose it. And so we are a couple of weeks away from the end of the fiscal year. I believe this money ended up being allocated for the apps. Is that not the agreement with what the money was going to be, the iPad apps?
I think it's something with projectors for the smart boards. The apps I'm covering as instructional out of my lab.
We do need 35 projectors. And the reason we need 35 projectors, and we're not going for new technology, is that the high school people are getting MacBook Airs, and it already runs the smart board technology. And so that's where we decided, because it wasn't tied into instruction and through the curriculum piece that way. For me, I would absolutely recommend that the school committee approve this. Because of the reasons I stated, that doesn't mean I'm not pursuing somebody to come in and work on the educational visioning with us, as Suzanne presented, because that was another missing piece, I think, from the last go-around with the project. But this occurred because vendors sometimes let you pilot free, or they sometimes charge you $60,000. And so Mrs. Condike was conservative with her budget, but now we use it or lose it for FY18.
So with the pilot, what happens next year when you adopt the program? Like, how do those materials, I don't even know.
It's budgeted in it next year.
So it's budgeted in the next year?
We're going to have
so
to pay
that's
for
not-
them. With discounts, you negotiate. Mrs. Condike is a hard negotiator. And you, I only speak for you because I had been in the position. Publishers have a lot of leeway in negotiating the packages they give to school districts. Now you can add to that.
I've already informed them that I don't intend to be charged for all of the print materials that we're using this year. They seemed a little surprised at that, and I said I've done pilots in other districts, and so we'll be negotiating very hard.
So then, what is the 35 projector? Because I didn't know that was a need, that the projectors
We
you're
didn't know it was a
talking
need
about?
either. Some of the work that Mrs. Mackey Knowles did, we actually thought we had under control, and then Evan, Latanya, and I had a meeting very recently, and she said, I screwed up, I forgot a couple of things. One being the brand-new website we have, and the maintenance of that, and the Office of Civil Rights complaint on straightening out our website with ADA compliance. This was one of those things. Because the decision was made, and because we got the funding for the MacBook Airs for the high school teachers, and their Chromebooks are being pushed down to students, that created an issue with the use of the technology that's in their classrooms with the projectors. So now they needed to get projectors that were compatible with the MacBook Airs. And if I'm saying this wrong, Katie, tell me.
I can answer this question.
Go right ahead, Vaughn.
Okay, you need to answer about specific number or?
No, we're just,
So 35 projectors are suddenly needed. I'm
Yeah,
just
let
trying
me
to,
explain,
so,
because in this building, all projectors came in year 2007, which is
When it was built.
11-year-old
Yeah.
Right.
units. And we partially replaced, during these years, many projectors reached end of its life and were already replaced with a new generation. Now, we just have counted like 35 probably, roughly. We need more to finish this project.
so it was an unanticipated
And
expense.
Those projectors, let me just finish, because it's more convenient to manage from IT department, because when you connect to local area network, they can be wirelessly accessed from any laptops, whether it's Mac. Unfortunately, Chromebooks doesn't have application, doesn't have support, but MacBook Air and any PC laptop can be connected wirelessly.
Wirelessly is the key to these.
Also, for IT department, it's really easy to keep database. Later, after the meeting, I can show you application, which basically interrogates every single unit and giving all information about serial number, about the life of the bulb, how many hours remaining, and a lot more. Even configuration, you can check every single unit. That's why we need.
these are existing projectors that you're upgrading, or you're adding an additional 35 to the
No,
system?
No, we're
They're
upgrading.
upgrading.
You're
We're just
upgrading.
replacing, because
Katie, did you want to add anything?
So previously to Latanya, there was not really a management system in place of recording how long different devices were lasting for. And so she actually had people go around and write down the year of every single projector in this district. And then because of that, they were able to monitor how long the projectors were lasting based on how many blew out over the course of this year and what year we purchased them. And in that process, it was discovered that we have a lot of projectors that are in the window of becoming very quickly not projectors. And so this is to replace the old projectors that are very likely not going to be projecting very long.
Because of the new laptops that you're using with them,
Because
or
they're
just
old.
because they're old?
Because
Okay.
they're old projectors, and they will connect better to the MacBook Airs. and
Wirelessly.
they're wireless. So like, you're getting two things.
Two benefits.
So the projectors that were put in when the school was built are nearing their end.
And my understanding is the bulbs are more, less expensive now in the newer models, because if I'm not mistaken, we were close to $300 a bulb in the old projectors. So better, faster, newer models is what we're going with. But there again, Katie has a good example of the amount of background work that was done. This wasn't just like walk around count. There was some data collected in order to determine that the devices were
So, I
going
mean,
through
I
it.
appreciate the data collection and the explanation behind it. I think I share Suzanne's frustration a little bit, because while I understand the work is occurring, and we did have a technology workshop where we were hearing all the great things that your teams, or Tanya's team, are doing in the district, it's just hard when these decisions come upon us, and I just don't understand it's like, oh, this one quickly, let's just switch, that kind of vision thinking of where we're going with our plan still needs to be really laid out, and I don't think we've been updated, and I appreciate that you're saying we're going to be, but I think it's just when You know, like when I saw the next thing too, the Clark iPads, I was kind of like, what's going on with iPads at Clark? Like, why are they getting that for a grant, right? Because I don't understand the vision for all the elementary schools for our technology plan. So let's just, thank you though, Katie, for explaining.
So,
I can't say I disagree.
our next school committee meeting is on June 27th, and it is a workshop. So by not voting on this tonight, we're basically saying we're going to lose this money. And I understand, and I'm hearing everybody's concerns, but I would ask that the committee would trust the people that are working on these projects to know, I'm not asking you to transfer $150,000. We're talking about $15,000 that became available. We used an opportunity to collect data, to find out what we needed, knowing that Mrs. Klondike was offering to contribute to something that we needed without losing the money. It is completely school committee's, obviously, jurisdiction. One of your major responsibilities is budgeting. So I leave it to you, but I also leave you with the information of a June 27th workshop, and the fiscal year closes on June 30th. Therefore, if we walk out tonight without a vote, that money's going away.
So, I'd like to tie it a little bit more to, and I confess I have not looked at it yet, Mr. Katz's FY18 budget update and what that looks like, you know, in terms of being over under for the year. I do recognize that there needs to be a fair amount of flexibility to respond to issues that arise. And I do understand that it is getting towards the end and we've got an opportunity here, but I don't disagree. For me, it feels like it's, like I said before, like we're solving a problem that I don't think any of us were aware that we had, and to Ms. Porter's point, we weren't aware that we had it until the analysis was done. So I'm conflicted about it.
Well, all right, I was not aware, I don't think it was made clear that we were voting on this tonight.
It doesn't even say vote
It doesn't,
next to it.
right, that's why. But with that said, I do trust the team, and if they say that we need this and that they have done the analysis, then clearly they, you know, while we vote on it, they run the operations of the school, and, you know, $15,000, if they say we need the projectors and that the projectors are nearing the end of their life. I mean, I know that we didn't know it was coming, but we're not always going to know everything ahead of time, because this is what happens.
We also didn't know
Things
Mrs.
come
Klondike
up.
was going to have budget money left in her budget because we thought we were paying for the pilot materials.
Well, so I guess that's my question is, if we didn't have that money, what would we be doing?
We wouldn't, bless you, we wouldn't get the projectors.
And so what would we be doing next year?
We'd be scrambling to find $15,000 to get projectors because we're
Or
giving,
moving priorities around or something,
well,
or
because we're
something else.
giving high school teachers brand-new Mac Air books, and we're trying to give them a teaching tool, and they can use current projectors with the dongles, I believe, but if the projector burns out, we're going to be filling this in piecemeal, and maybe when we don't buy in bulk, the projectors are going to cost more. I can't speak to that. I would have to bring Ms. Mackie Knowles in. So you do what you feel is best, and maybe we should continue with Mr. Katz's report. I just felt it important to say, I love the workshops, but I think sometimes those workshops are hindering some of this information coming forward
Okay.
in a more timely manner. And I'm not saying that's true in this case. I'm just thinking that perhaps.
So I think that's a fair observation. Could we, if the committee's amenable to it, can we just table it for a moment while we hear next steps from
Okay,
Mr.
because do we
Katz?
also need to vote on that family cap? Is that something that we're
No.
looking at?
As a recommendation.
No, that's a
Okay,
recommendation.
that's just a recommendation, okay.
Is everybody okay with moving?
Make a motion to just table that.
Okay.
Okay, so we're now to the fiscal 18 budget update. And so before, we have there's a new twist this month, in the last month or so. Had it not been for this twist, would be sitting here tonight telling you we're just about at break even. And so it's really the first year that we haven't been figuring out how to fund our special education, tuition and transportation. There was a budgetary issue 2 years ago. Last year, there was some money that was in the reserve fund. We were also over budget, I believe, both of those years. This year, it turns out we're under budget in those areas. We budgeted a little more realistically, and we also didn't have quite as many surprises, which is always nice. It does happen once in a while. So if it weren't for this situation that developed that I'm going to explain, involving some tuition that we received from the town of Nahant for some students in our special education program, I'd be reporting to you tonight that looks like we were about breaking even with the budget, which is really good given all the surprises and unexpected things that happen over the course of the year. So there's a memo that talks about providing background, and I'm going to read it and elaborate a little bit because it's a little complicated. So what we've been doing, the town brought in a new town accountant just about a year ago, Cheryl Stella. She's very experienced and very qualified, and we've been working with her in a host of areas, trying to get the accounting and the financial management that she's responsible for in compliance. And over the course of the year, it turned out that some special education tuition that we received from the town of Nahant, we were previously depositing it in our preschool program and considering it and running it through the preschool program and paying for the costs out of that account. And we revised that couldn't continue. There were about 6 students that were attending on a tuition basis outside of the grade 7 to 12 contract. The costs and services were arranged with the Student Services Department, and the programs were set up, and the students were provided services. The money we received covers all the direct costs of the program, and this was put into place back in fiscal 14. And it grew steadily, and it was prior to my arrival, and something that went on, and it turns out we weren't allowed to continue. And it's a correct call from Town Hall, and we discussed it with them over a period of months. As I said, it was tuition went through the preschool account, and what they're going to do for this year is in compliance with state law. The money that we were bringing in as tuition is going to be considered miscellaneous town revenue, so we won't have access to that fund, those funds, to pay for the staff that we hired to provide those services. Is everybody with me so far?
So like general education students from Nahant, that money is going to go to that same account?
We have had an agreement to provide special education services for about 6 students from Nahant. They were paying tuition to us. The money was going into the preschool account. It can't go into the preschool account because the students were not in preschool.
Right, that makes sense.
This ties into the third part of the paragraph here of what moving forward we're going to do to
Right.
straighten this out.
Right. So we're in the process of straightening this out, and there is a budget impact, and the amount of revenue that's involved is about $178,000. Sounds like a lot of money. We have a plan to cover it. We can cover it with our own resources, and we think it's possible we'll have some money in the school general fund, up to about $50,000 to contribute towards that, possibly some money in some of our revolving funds with unplanned balances. And also, we have circuit breaker that's available, and the total is $178,000 that we have to come up with, and we do have the resources to do that.
But I want to highlight, without this 178, we are break even, and that is a huge accomplishment when you are projecting budgets out as far as we're expected to project out. And I just think that's,
And this is obviously, this is frustrating to have to explain. I know that the committee doesn't want to hear this. This is something that was started 4 years ago. It went on for a while. No one said anything. And then Town Hall decided properly that this needed to be done differently. It was brought to our attention, and we're in the process of straightening it out.
however, the solution moving forward, Mr. Katz, is
Right. So for next year, and we've had some extensive conversations with Cheryl Stella, the town accountant. There are 3 options for next year. And one would be creating a special education revolving fund. This is allowed under the municipal finance reform of about a year ago. State law allows communities to set up these revolving funds and establish the rules, what money comes in and what it can be spent on. That's one option. Second option is a special education stabilization fund, which we've talked about. And then another way to handle it is by increasing the school budget. The revenue would go to town hall, and we would have a higher budget.
I really like, and I think Mrs. Raymond and myself and Mr. Katz have talked about going after the special education revolving fund. Having a revolving account, looking at communities, like communities and districts nearby on the North Shore, they have special education revolving accounts. And that's the way it seems appropriate to document this money in these funds.
Well, I know around town meeting when we decided not to pursue the stabilization fund, that we talked specifically about starting this. I know I had a conversation with Mrs. Raymond about it. So would there be other monies that go into this, including preschool tuition?
Well, preschool tuition is allowed to have its own separate revolving
That is a
account.
revolving account in and of
And that, they can have that on its own. Marblehead has just set one up similar to this, or just similar, because they have a very extensive tuitioning in program. So there's really, these are the three options that we come up with Town Hall, and I think we're going to have conversations with the selectmen and the finance committee and the town administrator to figure out what's the best solution in the long run.
So the revolving fund gives us sort of the most control.
It does give us
Like
most control.
money in, money out, both
Right.
ways.
Right.
Right.
Right,
And
so
when
they
we
would
started
they would
to-
still pay us directly, not town hall, and under
Yes.
that scenario.
Yes.
Right.
And when if you recall, when we started to pursue the Special Education Stabilization Fund agreement, part of the agreements that we saw as samples talked about zeroing out their special education revolving funds. And that's where we stopped and said,
We don't even have that,
Right.
right?
So I believe that's the best way moving forward
That's
to
when you need
maintain.
first, that's
yes.
when you need
I think it's a
first
key
before you
step.
have to go to the
Yes.
stabilization
Yes.
one. I mean, but to Amy's question, so what would be going in this? Right now, just Nahant special
education.
It would only
education
ever be
tuition?
Or like, well, no,
Or-
because
or
it could be
anyone else
anybody
could
else who
be tuitioning.
tuitions in special
We
education.
don't tuition anybody else.
But we could.
But we could.
We could.
Develop programming.
So these are, so it's not the
we would-
7 through 12 students. Keep in mind, it's the preschool through grade 6.
Right.
And if we have programs that have a big enough cohort and other districts do not, they have a one-off, they
Right.
may choose to tuition their child in.
But do we offer that today?
We actually had a situation recently where Martha was approached to have 2 more kids tuitioned in, and we said no, because we need to set this fund up first before we feel comfortable
And that was from
tuitioning.
a different town, not?
I don't know what town it was for specific, she didn't say, but she said there were 2 more cases.
We send people to Marblehead, right?
We-
I mean,
Yeah.
Marblehead.
We don't because they're super expensive. We try, we could,
No,
But we
we
could.
have in the past.
and we have in the past, yes.
Yeah, we have in the past, so they have
So
programming
it's
that.
tricky when you have small districts with not large enough cohorts. We talk about a one-off. If you have a one-off, you're not going to want to establish a program within your own district. You're going to want to find a district that could
So
meet
that
the
kids,
needs.
so that children can have peers.
For example, I can tell you right now, KIPP Academy approached us about a student that they would be willing to tuition in. But until this program, this revolving account is set up, we're not comfortable moving forward on that. So,
And
It's
so,
a really good opportunity for collaboration and sharing services with other,
yeah.
I mean,
It
you
is.
know,
Oh, yeah.
to share, just, make it so your tuition agreements
so
are
we
similar.
feel like at special town meeting, we would ask for a special.
This fall.
Yes.
so this isn't a decision that we make tonight, this is
No.
just what you're talking about.
We wanted to make you aware of the situation, that we have an understanding for this year what the impact is, that we have a solution that's within our control. Town Hall has to do their job in terms of telling us what we can and can't do.
Yep.
And they're also willing to work with us to come up with solutions. So, for example, on the revolving accounts, I've said we might need to give you an example, school rental account. We might have a little bit extra there. We could possibly move some high school expenses from the facilities into there to reduce the gap. And they understand, Town Hall understands, that we have to do a little bit of analysis, wait till things settle out after the last payroll, and do another analysis for the month of June to really figure out what the gap is. But the amount of money that's attributed to this is 178. I'm hoping that when we do our analysis in June for our budget, that we find out that our budget gap is smaller. All we have to do in terms of solving the problem is the net budget gap. We attributed this problem as contributing 178,000, but if we find out when we do our analysis of expenses and payroll at the end of the year that our budget is only $100,000 out of balance, as an example, we only have to come up with $100,000 because the general fund budget, the budget that you vote, that's paid for with local dollars, if there's money left over there, can help solve this problem. We're just not going to know for another few weeks.
I'm a little confused. So this was discovered through Town Hall,
No, we brought it to their attention.
that we are in deficit because of these.
No, that we
but
weren't-
we were just treating it with the wrong,
We weren't here, we weren't here, we
Putting
weren't.
it in the preschool
Right,
account.
right.
Prior administration at Town Hall approved the method with which we were doing this. Evan brought to light to me, I brought to light to the new town accountant that this was occurring, and we all collaborated on a way to move forward and fix this.
But it's money that we owe, correct? The school district owes. That's what I'm not understanding.
That's,
why
I guess I'm a
I
little
don't
Okay,
confused on
understand
that
how
too.
Okay, I'll
That
put it
doesn't
very
make
simply.
sense.
So, since the money, the 178,000 was intended to go into the preschool account, we were going to charge staff. The staff that we hired to provide the services had to follow the money. But Town Hall has said you can't put the money in the preschool account, it has to come to the town's general revenue. So all of a sudden, we have $178,000 of expenses without revenue to offset it.
But it was our revenue to begin with. It was
Because
just
it came
being,
from Nahant.
because it came from the tuitioned-in students, it was being documented inappropriately, so
Okay,
they took
right.
it to Town Hall. Now we're
But why
178
isn't the
short.
town making us whole in a different way?
They don't have the ability within municipal finance law, since this money goes into their miscellaneous revenue, you can't take money out of there without a town meeting vote.
so we can't say, okay, let's take that $180,000 out of this preschool account, hand it to the town for their general revenue, which would then in turn refund this. We can't do that.
No, it goes into the town's general revenue, and then we
And we're just
can't
out.
get it out.
And we're just
Oh,
out
okay,
the money.
okay,
Unless they allocate it into a special education fund and then we can access it.
okay.
I
Then
understand
it's
that.
us.
Okay.
Then it's in and it's out.
All right,
It's
sorry.
in
I
and
didn't-
Okay.
I couldn't-
Yeah,
the
no,
wording was
we
confusing.
talk about this all the time, so
It's hard, no, yeah, it's,
Okay, that makes sense, though.
But we were being reimbursed it. We just put
Not-
it in a
not
bucket.
right
No,
now.
we're not. We're gonna
Not-
have to make
not
up the
this year.
deficit this year.
But it was coming from this group.
But
You
it
just
has
said
to-
you were putting it into the preschool.
But
We were.
we can't do that anymore.
No, I understand that, but that's, okay.
So we put it in, but we can't pay out
Effectively
from
pay
there.
out from there, okay.
So we have to give it to the town.
Okay.
Because that's,
We can't keep it, as Mrs. Van Berg just said, because of the way that we've been record keeping. It has to be done differently.
Okay.
We could have gone to FinCom for a reserve fund transfer, but we've been told that money's allocated for something else. So we've determined that we're going to cover the shortage with our own
They
resources.
allocated the money for something else?
Their own issues on the general government side of things.
so we've got to pay them. So sort of the bottom line is, we've got to give them $180,000,
We already did.
and it will not sort of rectify itself until next year.
No, we will have to close the gap by June 30th.
Right, so it will not be rectified, like,
No,
we
they're not
can't-
gonna rectify it ever.
Right.
They spent the money on something else.
But next year they will, because next year they would put that back into.
Well,
It's
not
new
unless
money.
we get this special ed
Right,
revolving
Gotta
account.
be new
Right.
money,
New
not this
monies.
money.
Yes.
That's what we're hoping
Okay.
for a special town meeting in the
Okay,
fall.
it's
And
coming
we're
clear to
able
me
to
now.
cover $178,000?
Yes, through what Evan outlined in the second paragraph here. We would take 50,000 possibly from the general fund. We would look at revolving accounts for possible 25,000, and then we would tap into our circuit breaker if we needed to close the gap of 178. So we are going to close it internally.
Okay.
okay. I'm, sorry we had to
Confusing,
go through
but-
all that,
but-
and I apologize for the confusion. It's a lot of information to absorb in one night. So the bottom line, I think let's just go to the bottom line here. We can well, no, the near bottom line. The current analysis, if you go to the next report, a year-to-date budget report, June 13th, we have three major areas where we're under budget in the middle of the report. Unemployment, there's about $78,000 unspent. We estimate roughly $115,000 in vacancies due to positions not being filled during the year. And then, as I mentioned, special education, tuition, and transportation. In mid-May, we were about $88,000 under budget. Over budget is telephone. We didn't get the upgrade implemented that we thought we were going to do. That's the plan for this summer, funded in the capital plan. Gas and electricity is about $60,000 over based on a colder winter, and then in the beginning of the winter, we paid for higher price for natural gas until we got a contract for that. Substitutes looks like it's going to be over by about $125,000. Custodian overtime is over by about $10,000, due mostly to a settlement we had to fund in the middle of the year. We hired a special education teacher at Hadley that we thought we weren't going to need in the fall, and it turns out we did as the year went along, $42,000. METCO transportation, there was a budget oversight, not funding the monitor that rides one of the buses for $18,000. As I mentioned earlier, we talked about the special education tuition reclassification. So the bottom line is, it's 29 student days to go. We have invoices still coming in. We're paying for substitutes and all of our other staff. We're about $180,000 over budget. If it weren't for the Nahant tuition situation, we would pretty much be on budget. And as I say at the bottom, if the reserve fund is not available, school resources can be used in the following sequence to close the gap: the general fund, town-funded budget, certain revolving accounts, and then prior year circuit breaker would be the third source.
It's
So-
not going to be funded by the town reserve fund, so
Right.
we are expected to fill that.
I would say that makes sense, too.
It does.
Well, that's good news about the, other than the Nahant reclassification, it's great that where we are with our budget for 2018. And that, I think, has a lot to do with your work with Ms. Raymond and
As I said earlier, we really have a
always
lot of
being the wild card.
a lot of people helping us out, track things. As, you know, I did attach the report that we generate from the Munis software, and last year when we were projecting a year ago, the number was going up and down a lot because it wasn't as precise as using the Munis software. I've worked with Mrs. Vanderberg on developing this, and I think we've come to feel it's very reliable using existing current spending and then projecting forward. We'll be doing another report based on the middle of this month, and then obviously at the end. And but I'm feeling pretty confident about the projections that you have in front of you tonight.
Does anybody have any questions?
I don't like that 178 was this.
What'd you say?
Like, I don't feel good about it. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like
No, me
we
neither.
would have been coming at even, but we have 178,000, like, that doesn't sit well. I don't know, that just, I understand the
Yeah.
background.
No, we've had a lot of
but
time to
it's-
digest it,
For us to
believe
have
me.
to, like,
Eat that.
eat it, like, how are we eating it?
But we are, so that's very surprising that we're
How
not
are we able
bulking
to
at
eat it?
that. I
What?
mean, that we're not. that
Because
we're-
it's the right thing to do and it's the right.
No, but I'm
accounting
just saying, but we
procedure.
we have the money to use to do it.
Well, I don't like going into circuit breaker, so let's see where we end up before, if that 178 goes down to, say, 75, I feel we could do it with general fund and potentially a revolving account. I'm really not comfortable going into circuit breaker, but I also understand that would be the town's position to
Yeah.
go into circuit breaker before we go after the money from them, so.
Yeah, but even if you had to just go just if you could use general and other funds before you hit sewer.
Well,
circuit
that's the
breaker.
last resort. I
Right,
don't
but I'm
want to touch
saying,
it.
you know, hopefully if you touch circuit breaker, it's not going to deplete it too much.
No.
'cause
Well,
we have a
Well, it's,
good chunk.
The balance on circuit breaker coming into this year was $318,000.
Yeah, so we're.
We also were bringing in $595,000, and we only spent $530. So that's going to go up another 65, so it's going to be about $380,000. So if things break the right way, we may still have over 300,000 in there.
That is always my last resort.
But I
That's
just feel,
always- right.
but that number feels okay to me. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it's not scary like we talked about how low it could be.
Yeah, like,
Didn't
we
we
have
have
75,000,
56,000 number
yeah.
once that was like.
I agree with you.
Right?
So that's why I'm okay with this as much. And in all fairness, Gargi, I mean, we talk about this every single week. At 2 meetings, we have a week. So I think the shock has worn off on us internally, whereas you're just hearing it for the first time. It's taken us quite a few weeks to digest this, like, this isn't fair, and blah, blah, blah. And so we've finally resolved the fact that we need to fix it.
And
Kind of like raw fair. I've just.
I wasn't
Yeah.
first. I'm saying
Well,
I
no, I don't
wasn't
think
first.
fair. I think that what I'm hearing is that, like, how we're feeling right now is how
We
they
went
were
through
feeling a
this.
month ago.
We grieved.
And the other part of this is the town has its own set of budgetary issues, and I think that if the town's finances didn't have their own surprises, we might have been able to get a little bit of help with this, but
Right.
unfortunately, their problems are even bigger than this. So, because they're thinking they need the whole 275,000 of the reserve fund, so.
Fix some of their own.
That's where we are right now.
Okay. So we come back to the vote requested on the line item transfer.
Well, is it as formal as a vote requested, or is it
Just approval.
just approval? Because it's
It's within the bottom line of the
Yeah.
budget, so I don't know.
The school committee is the only entity that can vote
There
on
has to
transfers.
be a vote, 'cause-
It has to be a vote.
Maureen
okay.
didn't put.
I mean, look, here's-
And I should have been clearer with Maureen, that was my error.
Okay.
I kind of assumed, because last fall, we did all those budgetary transfers, that when people see the word transfer, they know it's vote, so, but that was my mistake.
yeah.
So, I trust the technology team, I trust Pam and your teams and assessing what is needed for our teachers to provide our students with whatever is needed to learn and educate in this district. What you're hearing, my concern is that I don't know the roadmap still, and that bothers me because it's a discussion we've had over a long time. And so I'm hoping that, so yes, obviously, if this is a need, I will, whatever, vote yes to approve that. But I really want to understand what steps are we taking to get to that roadmap. I understand that Ms. Mackey will be 1.0. That's great. I know she's doing a fantastic job in kind of inventorying and figuring out the needs. Maybe we could, because of this sort of issue, maybe we can set some sort of plan so that we can hear
Part of,
how that roadmap is going to be.
well, one of the things that when Amy and I met, we talked about in terms of my evaluation is my goals. And one of the things I'm going to ask Ms. Mackey Knowles to provide is a report through me and through my goals to the school committee. I don't want to have her come and do a presentation in the summer months. First of all, we're pretty much usually off for July. People aren't seeing it. So I will put her, we're at the school committee workshop, we're going to set a calendar. And maybe for the first month, she can prepare and come and do a presentation.
So it's not so much that I need her to come and present something, because if we're not there, we're not there. I'm not doing it for the show of her coming and saying, this is what we have. I want it to be like your honest opinion of, are we able to make that vision yet, because we're still in the process of figuring out.
I'm not telling her to
So-
come and just give you statistics. I'm telling her to come and articulate the work that she's done and the roadmap and where we're going. That's what I'm asking her to come and present to you.
Okay, as long as you feel like that's a realistic
I think
timeline
it's
of
very
just
realistic. I'll speak
whatever
with her
happens
tomorrow.
over the summer months and having to do. I guess I'm just trying to be mindful of that, like, just because we didn't really know, okay, you figured it out, great, now we're voting. I'm just trying to be clear, like, if we're not ready to, we would love updates, but if the vision map is not ready by blah, 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 by September, then that's okay. I just want a plan to figure out when that will.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
So,
It doesn't have to be as complicated as what's been done. It's really just like, what do we have now? What are we using it for? And what do we still need?
okay, so I think, I'm going to jump in here. I think I think you're hearing us loud and clear. And I think that you're hearing our discomfort and what needs to come next and in good order. But with that, I'm going to ask us, I will entertain a motion to approve the transfer.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any, apart from superintendent understanding what her marching orders are for this, is there anything anybody else would like to say or ask? Okay, then all in favor? Motion passes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the side door because I'm ready to pass
It's
out.
very hot in here.
There's no, the AC's moving.
Okay. Mr. Katz, does that take us through?
We are done.
Okay. It is 8:35. Superintendent, do you need a minute or two?
I need a minute or two, but I hopefully will be right back by the
Okay.
time Latoya sets up.
Okay. Okay, so why don't we take a minute?
That would be great. Let her set up.
Okay.